Hey folks, I wanted to make a little video today about the compare and contrast essay, the topic that we've voted on for this, how to go about developing ideas for it, organizing it, turning it in. This is going to be, I'm going to go through this very quickly, so if you have any questions, make sure to email me, post in the questions forum, call. So we compare and contrast things all the time. You know, we may do it formally in an essay like this. You've probably written a compare and contrast essay before, but we do this just in our normal life. You're standing in front of your closet and you compare and contrast, you know, in an instant, your clothing options. Or somebody says, what do you want for dinner? And you calculate all your options and compare and contrast what you know and what you like about them and what you don't like about them. The challenge with something like what we're talking about in this essay is that we're talking about other cultures and cultures that we probably don't belong to. If any of you are Maori or have been in a Russian prison, I would love to hear your stories about these things. So when we are talking about cultural things, we have on our culture's goggles, right? What we've been trained to think of as normal, as good, as bad, as American, as feminine, right? This is all arbitrary. It's all made up. Just think about in some places it's okay to eat cows, and in other places it's not okay to eat cows. In some places it's okay to eat insects, in other places it's not. Some places it's okay to eat cats or dogs. My family's Norwegian. It's a delicacy to eat rotted shark meat. Right? I make this face because of my culture's training on what's normal and what's good. So this is one of our challenges, that we have to try to take off our culture's goggles and put them down and put on another culture's goggles. So in our country, in our culture, it is acceptable to eat cows. You go to a Hindu community in India and that's horrible. Cows are holy, right? If somebody comes from a country where dog is a delicacy and they eat dog, we would be horrified, right? This is all arbitrary. It's just made up, and we buy into it because we're social beings. So we have to try to understand these traditions through the eyes of the people who practice them to understand them. One thing to note is that look at the dates on these articles. The one about Tomoko is from 2002, which is recent but a little dated. This is a long-standing tradition, so the information about its history obviously hasn't changed much, but what has happened in the last 18 years? There could have been substantial developments about this. So we have to be aware that we're looking at a snapshot that happened in 2002. The Russian prison tattoo is even older. It's from 1993. Have Russian prison tattooing practices and laws and symbolism changed in the last 30 years? Well, maybe. Maybe not, right? So that's something to be aware of, that if you look at things now, 20 or 30 years later, they may be different. With this essay and with all of our essays in that we do for academic purposes, we always want to acknowledge where our information came from. So in our second and our third essay, we're going to have a strict MLA in-text citation. For this one, since we're just getting started, I'm not going to be expecting the exact, precise MLA citation. If you did that in formal classes and you want to do that for this essay, I'll check it and let you know how you're doing on it. That's fantastic. If not, your job as a writer is to make sure that you tell us where this information is coming from. So in your introduction paragraph, give us the article titles and the authors' names so that we know, okay, all the prison tattoo information is coming from Bronnikov. If you bring in information from other sources, let us know where it came from. Give us the title, give us the author, so that when we're reading it, We know where the information came from. Now, you're going to bring in a lot of your own information when we're talking about the American traditions. What do you know about American tattooing? You can talk about your own experience if you have tattoos or know people who have tattoos. But if you bring in source information from an article, a website, a YouTube video, make sure to tell us where it came from. So we're looking at the symbolism and the differences in these three traditions, right? We're looking at the Maori Tomoko, we're looking at the Russian prison tattoos, and we're looking at kind of our mainstream American modern tradition. So we need to look at a couple things. Who gets the tattoos? Obviously at the Russian prisons, it's Russian prisoners, right? People who are incarcerated. Who gets them in the Tomoko? Who gets them in the U.S.? We may find that there's a lot of variation in our tradition that we don't necessarily find in these. Who does the tattooing? Right? We have very specific rules on who can tattoo here in the U.S. We see at the end of the Tomoko article by Aoi Kotuku, I'm probably not saying that right, there's some issues about the gender of who's tattooing and should women have the ability to tattoo traditionally, etc. In the Russian one, we see that often the prisoners tattoo themselves. Sometimes other prisoners tattoo them. How do they get them? So in the U.S., do we do them at home by ourselves? Do we go to tattoo parlors, official shops? How are they done in the Maori tradition? How are they done in the Russian? We see that in the Russian article, sometimes prisoners are tattooed forcibly, that other prisoners hold them down and tattoo them to punish them. So how do they get them? The big thing, of course, is what kinds of tattoos do they get? They're very specific symbolism in this one and this one. What kind of tattoos do Americans get? What do they mean? And then, of course, why? Why do we do this? And there's big chunks of both articles explaining the why. To belong to a community, to reclaim identity, to tell your personal story. So why? So these are the kinds of things that we're comparing and contrasting. So on the assignment sheet, which you can find in the Module 1 folder, there's a potential outline for you to use. We don't want to just fling down the information in random order because then our readers will be confused and disoriented. So we need it to be organized. So you need to discuss, okay, this is the who, what, where, when, why of Russia prisons. Here's the who, what, where, when, why for the Maori Tomoko. Here's America. And then you can discuss, okay, there's these three, now here's our similarities and differences. So pay attention to that outline that's on the assignment sheet. That'll help. We're going to want this to be an MLA page format. We're not doing the specifics of the MLA citation, but the page format, where to put your name, what font to use, how to double space. We're assigned some readings with that next week. So if you need help with your MLA page format, I'm happy to help. We need to make sure that this is in a document form that I can read and open. So any Microsoft Word, a PDF, an RTF. If you send me a Google Docs, I can read it and grade it. It's hard for me to put comments on it. So I would prefer that it's an actual file from Microsoft Word or something like that. So I can give you very specific comments because you'll have the opportunity to revise this. So if Google Docs is the only option, it'll work. I'd prefer it was an actual Microsoft Word file so I can give you feedback on it. We're covering grammar next week, so this is kind of like a grammar diagnostic. Do your best with your apostrophes and your commas and all that kind of stuff. And I'll let you know what your patterns of errors are, that, okay, you've made this error 3 times. This is something you need to pay attention to. So do your best on that. And when you're ready to turn it in, make sure to save your file to your computer, your thumb drive, or whatever it is that you're saving it onto. With the format for your file name should be your last name, your first initial, and the type of essay. So like Johnson, K, compare and contrast. That way when I save it to my computer to put comments on it, you only have one compare and contrast essay. I'm going to get a bunch, right? So I don't want to accidentally, when I send it back to you, send you somebody else's essay, right? So make sure it's last name, first initial, the type of essay. And by the due date, you'll need to make sure to go into submit assignments right there on our Blackboard and upload the file. So if you have any questions with that, make sure to let me know. If while you're drafting this, you want me to look at it and you're like, hey, how is this looking? I'm happy to help at any time. And I look forward to what you have to say about all this.